Hello and welcome to One Take CEO Interviews. I'm Dale Kirshner. Today we're talking with Ben Fowke, Chairman and CEO of Xcel Energy. Ben has been in that role since 2011, but has played a key leadership role in the development of this company since it was formed in 2000 when Northern States Power merged with New Century Energies. Today, Xcel has about 3.7 million electric customers and 2.1 million natural gas customers in 8 Midwestern and Western states, including Colorado, the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Through the first 9 months of the year, net income was up slightly to about 1.2 billion, even though revenue was slightly lower, coming in around 8.6 billion. Assets are up as well to 53.7 billion. Xcel was the first major U.S. utility to announce a vision to provide 100% carbon-free electricity by the year 2050, and it has been a leader in wind energy generation for more than a decade. Ben, welcome to One Take.
Well, thanks, Dale. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. As I mentioned, the numbers sound good. Given the economy, I saw that electricity looks like it dropped a little bit for maybe office use. But how have you dealt with COVID-19 as a business in terms of sales? Have you had to adjust for all the power intake that homes are using as a result of people working from home?
Yeah, Dale, it's a great question. I mean, overall, sales in 2020 were down. But as you mentioned, the mix was different. We actually saw an increase in residential sales, home use. That was actually up 3%, which reverses a trend that we've had in the past where it was flat to slightly declining. But we saw significant downturns in sales from the commercial and industrial sector. That was down more than 4.5%. So overall, sales were slightly down below what our expectations were coming into the year. But we managed to mitigate the loss of sales through innovation and really figuring out new, more efficient ways to do business, and saved us a lot of money, which of course ultimately translates to saving customers money. And we were able to achieve our earnings guidance for our investors. So a challenging year, but one where Xcel Energy met the challenges.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. I mean, I'd love to dig into it more, but we don't have the time. But I also saw you were able to reduce costs in certain areas too. And can you give us one example of innovation that you're most proud of in terms of what happened during 2020?
Well, what I'm most proud of is that we didn't have to do draconian things. I'm proud that we didn't lay anybody off. But we basically we accelerated the use of technology that allowed us to better manage our business, to better schedule, to be more productive in how we use materials and how we schedule. And that resulted in a major amount of time savings. We pushed our supply chain, making sure that we absolutely were getting the best deals. And all of that translated to sustainable savings that we'll take with us in 21 and beyond. And the thing that was really impressed me is the enthusiasm that we had within the company to meet the challenge and to take an open look at processes and rethink them. And I think our bottom line benefited. I think our customer experience improved. We had some of the best customer satisfaction. Well, we did have the best customer satisfaction we ever had in 2020. And we made it easier for employees to do their work. So really excited about that.
You invested pretty significantly in a new headquarters building in downtown Minneapolis, what, about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
And now everybody's working remotely. And as I listened to what you just talked about with regards to innovation, how have you been able to keep that innovative spirit going and get people to continue to collaborate while they're working remotely? And now what are you thinking about that headquarters building?
Well, I mean, the headquarters building is as you mentioned, we're locked into a pretty long-term lease there. So we'll figure out how to use it in the appropriate way. We will have a remote workforce policy post COVID. To your question about how we've managed to collaborate, I think we all Zoom quite a lot. And, I don't think there's any substitute, Dale, for human face-to-face interaction, particularly the casual interactions that you have. But we've really managed to achieve a lot in this virtual world, and half of our workforce is working virtually today. That means half of our workforce isn't, and we can talk about that. But the technology that was deployed even to move that 50% of our workforce within 1 week to working remotely was really pretty amazing. And we had very few glitches with that. So it can be done. I do think long-term though, you want to come into the office and interact with your colleagues, at least for a few days a week.
Yep. And is that about 5,000 employees that are working remotely now?
That's about right. Yeah. It's about half of our workforce. Mm-hmm. And again, we did that within 1 week. The other half, of course, very essential workers doing the critical work to keep all of our lights on and the energy that we all need to power our lives. And they've done a remarkable job in very challenging circumstances. And I think we all, need to take our hats off to those men and women that are out there every single day making it happen. And Dale, you probably know that the nation was hit with really bad storms this year and wildfires. And, those same people, after they, got the lights on from our storms here locally, would then, go to other parts of the country to help there. And they have worked tirelessly, and I'm really, really proud of them.
How have you dealt with keeping up their morale and also your IT department's morale? Switching all those people over to remote working, bonuses. I mean, what have you done to try to say thank you to those folks?
Well, incentives and special bonuses and things like that always help. But I think there's no substitution for a thank you either. And while I am working remotely, one of the advantages you have in this Zoom kind of virtual meeting environments that we have is that I can Zoom in with 20, 30 people that in faraway locations like, Roswell, New Mexico, or wherever we are, and thank them, learn a little bit about what's on their minds, and, thank them for what they're doing. And I have those meetings, Dale, and I tell you, I learn something every time, and I'm getting pretty good positive feedback on that. Now, we actually stepped up our internal communications during this COVID, and people, we get thousands of people listening live to my town hall meetings, and then they're available for replay. We have a lot of different forums for employees to ask questions. And by the way, it's just not our IT or our people out in the working on the grid or our power plants. You can imagine the HR department has been, just absolutely round the clock working as we field calls with people that might have come in contact with somebody that had COVID-19. And we've taken a very conservative approach on how we've been quarantining workers and that sort of thing to do the most we possibly can to keep our entire workforce safe.
Yeah. And Ben, recent events with solar winds and other things with cybersecurity, as I think about all of us having to switch to so many people working remotely, security has become even more of an issue for all organizations. But as you run a utility business that's so important to all of us, how have you dealt with security issues 2021, 2020, prior to that? I know you've been working on it for years, but have you had to up that as well?
It's a continuous, the bar keeps raising every year because the bad guys get better, so we have to get better. I'm very proud of the security team that we do have. They're renowned in our industry, but we also work very closely with the industry and collaborate on best practices and things that we're finding. We work closely with federal and state government, and we drill constantly. One of the things that Xcel Energy has led within our industry is kind of the self-policing, if you will. It's something I borrowed from the nuclear industry, where we challenge each other. Well, we're doing the same with cyberspace. So we're in the process right now of being reviewed by our peers, and they're going to tell us if there's anything they see that we can do better. And then we'll do the same with other companies in the utility industry. Because we want to do everything we can to prevent it. Then you got to make sure that in the event that it does happen, that we can restore power and get everything back to running quickly. And so I think it's incumbent that we understand where all the strengths in our industry are, so we can, just like we do when big storms come, we can pull that talent together in the event that there is a cyber attack on the grid, and we can marshal those resources. And a lot of work goes into that. We're constantly working on it, and we have to.
Yeah. Speaking of security, George Floyd and the situation in Minneapolis, that's a kind of a two-pronged question that I want to get to here. And one is, in the past, you've talked very much about the importance to you regarding diversity in your workplace. And when you think about what's happened, the issues that have been raised with George Floyd's death, how has that affected you and Xcel Energy dealing with the racial issues that it helped elevate?
Well, it was a heck of a wake-up call, right? I mean, it was pretty hard to ignore, and you know, the tragedy was right there in our backyard. Of course, it was the epicenter for what happened nationally. So in my opinion, what we need to do is really focus on how we can do a better job of hiring, retaining, and promoting people of color, particularly African Americans. And we're doing a number of things. You know, it started for us with crucial conversations. I had a very heart-to-heart video recorded, similar like we're doing right here, Dale, with our most senior African American leader. And we talked about the differences in experiences, and that cascaded down. More of those conversations happened. We started thinking about how we can make sure we don't have any unconscious bias in the hiring process. I'm not going to go through the laundry list because there's a lot of things we're doing, but I will tell you this year we're measuring it, and we're measuring it on our scorecard, which is part of our annual incentive plan. And I think that's important, because this is not something that I want to, you know, fade away as the event, you know, becomes further and further behind us. I also took the opportunity as chair of EEI, the Edison Electric Institute, which is the industry's trade group, to challenge my fellow CEOs to do more. And I'm proud to tell you, we have a meeting later today on that. And I think every single member company took the challenge and adopted 3 or 4 more best practices to do more in this area, and they were all deeply committed. So it's a journey, but we got to make sure that we, or quest, as some would say, I think that's a better word, but we have to stay on top of it. So measuring it is going to be a big part of it.
And there's so many other questions I want to get to, but I just wanted to ask one more back on this one, and that is, the pipeline has often been raised as the key challenge here, that there are not enough people of color that are at earlier stages in an organization to cultivate and help train. Have you identified that at all in terms of things that Xcel can do to try to make sure that that pipeline has that flow of people?
It's absolutely a big issue. I think, first of all, I think the talent exists. And so, you know, making sure that you challenge your recruiters to bring you a diverse slate of candidates is very important. Making sure that you don't have anything in your screening process that would screen out a qualified candidate. Making sure you have diverse interview panels. That helps you get talent. A lot of times it's coming from outside of the Twin Cities region, which is, to your point, why we have to really double down on growing talent organically. And one of the things that I've been really, really proud of, and really it's exciting every summer when I meet with them, is the Step Up program. Probably familiar with that, with the high school interns. That is an amazing program, and we have doubled down on that this coming year to do even more. And then what we've done is we want to stay in contact with them. So we've developed an app where we can continue to, as they move on to further education, so that we have first dibs on, you know, and I say we as the collective business community have first dibs on trying to get them hired when they're ready to be hired. And so that's the sort of stuff that I think really, really can make a difference.
Ben, you mentioned your industry leadership, but you're also a key leader in Minneapolis. And Minneapolis's safety has come up quite a bit with people working downtown nowadays. How are you dealing with that issue of feeling safe, walking to and from work and walking around for lunch?
It's a big issue, Dale. And I don't know if I have a definitive answer for you. I will tell you that as I have those town halls and those employee meetings, increasingly when we talk about coming back to work and the timeframes, there's more questions about safety than there is COVID safety. And that's pretty telling. So as part of a business leader, I work with other business leaders to advocate the need to, you know, keep our police force present, to make sure we have a safe environment. But you hit upon it in your remarks. I think there's a little bit, as we do come back, some of this will fade. But if there's not a safe environment, especially with remote work, I'm candid in talking to city officials that people will leave the environment. And then, you know, you get into a spiral that is not good for the city. So we have to address public safety. And to do that with a collective voice, I think, can be very powerful.
Switching gears to energy production, you have been a champion for wind power. You've been a champion for clean energy. Your goal of 2050 for clean electricity. The Biden administration sounds like they're shooting for 2035. I see you're expediting closures of coal-fired power plants, and you're doing all these things that seem to be sooner than you were originally planning. Where do you stand right now in terms of could Xcel be completely free, clean energy, clean electricity by 2035 if you really pushed it?
In all candidness, I think that would be very difficult to do with the technology available today, particularly from an economic standpoint, much less an operational reliability standpoint. You know, Dale, that part of that announcement of, carbon free by 2050 was also an 80% carbon reduction by 2030. And doing so with affordability and reliability in mind, taking advantage of low cost renewables, preserving our legacy nuclear fleet, and yes, putting some gas on the system as we move away from coal to preserve reliability. The good news there is if you can get to 80%, we can work on that last 20%. That's going to take new technologies. I've been working with the Biden administration and Congress to talk about policies that we think make sense, a lot of which is around, let's invest in those new technologies today so they'll be ready for tomorrow. Look, if something was a breakthrough economically, that would be great. We'll go as fast as the speed of value. But the key is to keep our product affordable and reliable, not only because our customers need it and depend on it, but also because we have opportunities to electrify things like transport. And if it's economically driven, and today, if you fill up with Xcel Energy, it's kind of the equivalent of like 60 cents a gallon if you're doing it off peak. That's a remarkable thing. We want to make sure that's still economically driven. So it's going to be really important to work with the Biden administration on that.
Sounds good. And then what would you say your greatest challenges for 2021? I mean, we're talking about a lot of different issues. There are many more that I'm sure are on your plate. What's your greatest challenge this year?
Well, it's, as always, safety, making sure that we keep the lights on. That's job number one. But we want to continue to advance the clean energy transition. And this is really going to be a big year for that. We're completing the biggest wind farm development project the nation's ever seen. But we're not stopping there. In Minnesota and Colorado and other jurisdictions, we're filing with our commissions our plan to get us that important 80% interim goal. And it's going to be, a very important year to listen to their feedback, other individuals' feedback, and then move forward with these plans that'll get us to that goal. And I'm excited about it. We want to continue to double down on innovation. I talked a little bit about that earlier. But, we need to continue to innovate and use technology to make our business better for customers, employees, and all stakeholders.
Yeah, Ben, one thing I noticed in the numbers was it seems like you're still keeping rates at comparable rates to other states and other utilities that are not investing this much in clean energy. That's kind of a mystery to me. How are you able to invest so much in clean energy initiatives while still keeping rates competitive with utilities that are not doing that?
Well, it's because the kinds of renewables that we want to invest in, you mentioned wind, they actually have a great price point, Dale. We have a program, we call it STEEL, and that's STEEL for fuel, Steel for Fuel. And basically what I'm doing is I'm substituting the fuel that you pay for in your bill for steel, these wind farms. And when you net it all out, the steel is better priced than the fuel. So we might still have gas plants and backup, but to the extent that I can run wind and it's cheaper than what it would cost to fire up that gas plant, I can save you money. Now that creates a little headroom for us to make necessary grid investments, and we have. The grid needs to be invested in to ensure reliability. So that does create some, pressure on rates, but all in all, we think total bills have been below the CPI and over the last 5 years, and we want to keep it that way.
And second to last question, succession planning. Like you mentioned at the beginning, you have been so critically important in the growth of this organization. What is the succession plan?
Well, a leader is only as good as their team, Dale. And I am really proud of my team. Many of them came into their roles, we had a lot of people leave through retirement at the end of 19. So starting in 2020, I had many people in the new roles, and they have done a remarkable job gelling even with these challenges. And so we've got a lot of good internal candidates. I'm not going anywhere. I haven't announced anything yet. You'll be the second to know. How about that when I do? But you know, I'll be 63 in May, so it's incredibly important for the board and myself to have a thoughtful succession plan. And the good news is we've got a lot of talent at Xcel Energy.
Great. Ben, what question should I have asked you today that we didn't get to?
Well, I think you're pretty comprehensive, but you know, I mean, the thing I would say is that, you know, Xcel's well positioned for success. 2020 was one of the most challenging years the nation has seen. And I'm just so proud of what we've been able to do to continue our strategic initiatives. And I think that's going to carry us forward in 21 and beyond. And I guess the thing I would like to touch upon, Dale, is part of being there for our communities is not just keeping the lights on, it's giving back to the community. You know, when we sold one of our power plants, we donated $20 million of that, the proceeds, to fund COVID-19 relief and racial justice. Our employees have stepped up. We exceeded our United Way goal. We donated already $1.5 million to food banks. We're going to continue to do more in the community with things like the Step Up program. And our commission recently approved a $700 million wind repowering program, which is going to create jobs while saving customers money. So, you know, it's part of the excitement that I feel about 20 and the excitement that rolls into 21.
Well, sounds good. Ben, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Dale. Good talking to you.
Thanks. I want to also thank our sponsor today, the Platinum Group. Platinum Group is a group of trusted counselors that have helped businesses in situations ranging from acquisitions and managing rapid growth to divestitures and turnarounds for more than 40 years. If your company needs help or would appreciate a second opinion, give them a call at 952-829-5700. You can also learn more about them at theplatinumgrp.com. And lastly, if you would like to sponsor one or more of these one-take CEO interviews or suggest a CEO to be interviewed, please let me know by emailing me directly at dalekirshner@gmail.com or calling 763-567-9241. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on One Take.